Hey, Kara,
What?
are we going on the Stein cruise this year?
I thought we were going to do the second part of the European trip this year.
What, France and Italy?
Exactly.
Weren't we going to wait until Vitali and Doomy moved to Italy?
They moved 6 months ago.
I don't know. We really connected with those folks in the Stein cruise.
That's true. It would be great to see some of them again.
Where is the cruise this year?
I just got an email the other day. It goes from Barcelona, Spain to Southampton, England.
Really? Did you know that Barcelona is pretty close to France? Oh. Hey, we should do
them both.
Time for me to get busy and put a plan together. After doing my research, I decided we would fly into Marseille, France, rent a car, drive along the coast of the Mediterranean with stops in Nice, France, and Genoa, Italy. Then we would head inland to see our friends Vitali and Doomy, who are pastoring a church in Vicenza. We would then take a northerly route back to Marseille through the Italian and French Alps. Then we would catch a train to Barcelona, get on the cruise to Southampton, England, and end up in London for a few days before returning home. The day eventually arrived, and we were packed and ready for our 3-week excursion.
It was a long but comfortable flight to Marseille, France. We arrived in time to get our rental car, check into our hotel, and have our first dinner.
The next morning, we got up early and headed for Nice, but not before going to our fellowship church in Marseille.
The entire church service was in French and English, which made it enjoyable for us monoglots.
We had a great time in church, but we had a schedule to keep, so we were off to Nice.
Our time in Nice made us feel like it should be a place for a future extended stay. We only spent one night, which left us wanting more time there. We took a stroll through the old city, which led us to the Mediterranean Sea. Fortunately, it was cool enough outside that we were able to walk the beach without our eyes being defiled.
Our next stop was Genoa, Italy. The drive down there was beautiful as we drove through a series of tunnels and bridges. We didn't spend much time in Genoa, just a nice meal and an overnight stay in a really nice old hotel. We got up early the next morning and took off for Vicenza.
Sunrise at the wilderness of northern Italy. Vicenza, Italy is where our friends Vitali and Doomy Galapino are pastoring a new startup church. We got to spend 2 days with them. One of the highlights was an evening of fellowship with their beautiful little congregation. We kept Vitali busy translating all our conversations to English, Russian, Romanian, or Italian.
I made a quick stop to get an Italian haircut. Because of the language barrier, I ended up with much shorter hair than I was expecting, but I kind of liked it. The next day, we all took a train ride to Venice, kind of a bucket list thing for me. Venice was definitely a unique place.
What can we say about Venice? It's a beautiful city in the north of Italy, built on a series of little islands. No one travels by car there. It's all waterway travel. It's really stunning and special. We spent the day there with Doomy and Vitali and had a lovely time wandering through the city, enjoying the sights, talking with people, and buying souvenirs. We also had a really nice lunch while we were there, and then we took the train back.
The next day, it was time to get back on the road. We took 2 easy days of driving through a much more alpine part of Europe. Beautiful views and quaint villages awaited us as we made our way back to Marseille to return our car rental. We got a hotel right across the street from the train station for easy access to our train ride to Barcelona the next day.
We got a big surprise when we found out our room was on the 5th floor and the hotel had no elevator. We somehow managed to schlep our luggage up all 5 floors. After that, I couldn't get Bruce to move, so I hiked down to a local market and we had takeout in our room that evening.
We had an early morning train to catch, so we got up at the crack of dawn. I muscled our suitcases down the multiple flights of stairs while Carrie got ready. A short trek to the train station later, we were looking bewildered at French instructions telling us how to get to our train. Thankfully, there was a nice bilingual lady getting on the same train as us, and she helped us find it.
The high-speed train was amazing. It felt like we were crawling along, but Bruce pulled an app out on his phone that showed we hit speeds as high as 187 miles per hour. It only took 4 hours to get from Marseille, France to Barcelona, Spain.
We arrived with plenty of time to get a good taste of Barcelona before we had to board our cruise ship. We decided to take a shot at using their subway system. It was actually pretty easy. We were able to explore quite a bit of this beautiful city. The highlight was probably the architecture of some guy named Gaudi, but I would not presume to say anything about him with our resident art history expert sitting here next to me.
I first became familiar with the design of architect Antoni Gaudi in college in the 80s while studying art history, and I've always thought it would be a great time to see his work in real life if I ever made it to Barcelona, Spain. It was a lifelong dream realized.
The next day, we were scheduled to board the ship at 11:30, but it got pushed back several hours. So we opted to take an open-top bus tour for a couple of hours. That was fun, but we were ready to get on with our cruise.
We were finally allowed to board the ship. What a relief. No more lugging suitcases around for the next 7 days. We got to our room and it was very nice. We had a window and a little porch. We unpacked our bags and we checked in with the Stein people. The welcome aboard meeting was in an hour. A quick snack and a change of clothes and we were off to the meeting place.
We linked up with some old friends and met some new people as Mark Stein welcomed us and introduced the host. What a relief to see Mark walking around with just a cane. On the last cruise, he was in a wheelchair.
What a fantastic time we had on the Stein at Sea cruise. We had a reunion with the people we met on the previous cruise. It was great to see Stuart from Perth, West Australia with his mullet, Greg from New Zealand, Steve from New York City, Kim from Andover, Massachusetts, and many others. We also met and linked hearts with several new people. We feel like we made enduring friendships with Steve from South Dakota and his sister Julie from the Twin Cities, Penny from Yorkshire, England, Mike and Jenny from Virginia, and I'm sure there's others that I can't think of right now.
My favorite part of the cruise was dinner with different Steiners each night. At several dinners, we also had a celebrity host. I think I really scored by sitting next to Mark Stein one night and Philip McAleer the next. Both treated me like an old friend.
We got off the ship at 2 of the ports, first at Lisbon, Portugal, and then at A Coruña, Spain. At Lisbon, we hiked through the busy narrow streets, buzzing with scooters, cars, rickshaw taxis, and lots of pedestrians. We hiked up to a place overlooking the port. A Coruña was a beautiful Spanish city with a nice shopping area where we found an amazing vintage store. We bought several items of clothing for a total of 11 euros, better than thrifting back home.
The Stein group schedule kept us pretty busy on the ship with get-togethers and the Mark Stein podcast recorded live in the theater. At the farewell party, I managed to talk Carrie into doing a little karaoke.
I haven't changed. They say I'm lazy, but it takes all my time.
We also did find time to take in a few of the regular shows on the ship.
All great things must come to an end. We arrived in Southampton and got off the ship. It was sad to say goodbye to everyone except Penny. We shared an Uber with her up to London, where we had lunch, and then she caught a train home to Yorkshire. We spent the last 3 days of our European adventure in London.
We arrived on a Sunday, and we weren't going to miss an opportunity to see one of our London churches in action. The main church in London is in Walthamstow, and their evening service was at 6:30, just enough time for us to get cleaned up and catch an Uber ride over there. It was amazing. We were treated like VIPs just because we come from the original church in Prescott. We met some great people and look forward to seeing them again sometime. One of the church members insisted that we weren't taking an Uber ride back downtown to our hotel, so he got us a ride. Thank you, Bobby, for setting that up with Witu.
When we saw that Robina, a lady we connected with so well on the last Stein cruise, wasn't there this year, we texted her, knowing that she didn't live far from London. She decided to take the train down to meet us for lunch. While waiting for her at the meeting place in Covent Garden, we were watching a very talented street performer. And out of the blue, he picked Bruce to be his assistant in his act. Just then, Robina showed up, and we had a good laugh watching Bruce turn beet red from the embarrassment. A good revenge for karaoke night.
Later that night, we went to the first night of the South London Bible Conference. Fred Ruby, who is one of our favorites, was preaching.
God has entrusted to me, and he puts it this way, the gospel of his son. Meaning it is everything to do with the person of Jesus.
It totally lived up to our high expectations. And afterwards, to our humbling delight, Fred invited us to join Norma and him for a late dinner with Pastor Nigel Brown and a pastor and his wife from Namibia. It turned out that we knew the Namibians from when we had a group of people at our house in Prescott. Small world.
One more day in London, and we were going to make the most of it. We met a young man from Norwich when he was in Prescott a few years ago, and we have been long-distance friends since. Bruce let him know we'd be in London, so he checked his schedule, and it turned out he was going to be there working our last day. So we arranged to meet for a late lunch. We had fun seeing Dodie. The last night of our adventure was going to be a good one. We took a short walk to the Cambridge Theatre to see Matilda.
The rules in my school.
It's a little embarrassing to say how many times we've seen Matilda, but we love it. And in London, come on.
The next morning, we had one last ride to Heathrow International Airport. We had begun a practice of asking all of our Uber drivers, who were mostly Muslim, what they thought of Donald Trump. Most actually had a positive view, but this guy was a huge fan. Or maybe I should say huge.
I love Trump.
We arrived at Heathrow and waited for our long flight. About 15 hours later, we arrived in Phoenix. It was a great trip, but it's always good to be home. Oh, by the way, it's pronounced schlep.
Slept? That's what I said.
Say shh.
Shh.
Now say lep.
He really knows the lingo.
Now say shh and lep together.
Slap.
I love you.
He really knows the lingo.